Welcome back, guys. So now we're going to dive into some really fun stuff. This is definitely getting into more higher level, conversion tracking and just attribution stuff. Before we really dive into the attribution models in the next lesson, I really wanted to just kind of explain some of the differences and just set the record straight as far as, social versus Google or PPC versus native and so on. So one of the things that you need to be understanding on is like your attribution models that you're going to look at from in here and your goals and how they interact with each other, right? There's always going to be some time delay in them. But the fundamental kind of backbone of how they report is also a little bit different, right? We've talked about how YouTube is a great top of funnel tool because of the fact that it reports to a view or just a really small interaction through like an in-stream video, right? Well, that's also a huge difference from how Google works, right? Google ads, the only way they report back is if you click on them, right? Now, if you see a viewable impression on CPM, then that's one thing, but you're not going to have the conversions tracking back to a CPM very often unless it's completely within the Google system, right? So you're never going to see a lot of direct transactions that if they haven't engaged with your site, where they've gone from, Facebook to Google, or they've gone from other social platforms to Google, because social primarily is going to deliver and track everything to an impression, right? It doesn't have to necessarily engage or click on the ad. They can just engage with it, kind of scroll over the video, just basically get an impression of the overall ad content. So you're going to have some variables whenever you're getting into some of these attribution models that you need to really take into account as far as how that original interaction came about, right? Now, you may think that it interacted on social or it may be interacted on YouTube, but again, it's where they've engaged and where it gives the most value to. And that's really what this next kind of aspect is it's trying to bridge that gap as much as possible, right? There's always going to be this kind of back and forth just because of their competitors. Google wants to beat Facebook and Facebook wants to beat Google. Like that's just what they do. So the fact is they're probably never going to share information, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that is going on even with Congress as well within the data sharing and the privacy aspects that are probably even going to tighten that up even more, right? They're going to get a lot less liberal with sharing data or exchanging data across platforms and making it in a public arena. So you just have to keep that in mind. So this next lesson is all about uploading your offline conversions, uploading your cost data from these other platforms. It's definitely, there's a lot of scenarios that happen with e-commerce companies and even just with brick and mortar stores where people come in and they return transactions, right? And we don't really account for those returned items. We also don't really ever account within the Google reporting aspect of it on Google Analytics, account for costs outside of Google, right? So that's what linking this stuff is and uploading these offline conversions, uploading offline costs is all about, and is why it's so important. Because again, especially if you're ordering if you have a brick and mortar store, all those people that are coming into your store and interacting with you at a face-to-face basis, right? The likelihood that you're ever going to associate those conversions back to interactions online, unless they say, hey, I saw you on Google, what's up? Or they mention some code that you mentioned in your ad, that's really one of the only ways to track it, right? So that's why being able to upload offline customer lists that you've taken into account, email lists, or your returned items and being able to pull those back out of inventory calculations or ROI calculations is extremely important, right? I want to have within my Google Analytics, I want to have the best possible scenario to have a good visualization of what is happening on all my platforms and how their ROI is comparing to the other ones. And the only way you can do that is by getting some of these offline costs and offline conversions back into the system. And that's what this is all about. So the first thing that you need to do is go down here to the admin panel. All right, and you want to make sure you're on your account property. You want to make sure you're on your property here as well. Now, one thing before we start with the data import, right? You have this create view over here. Now, this is much different than the property, right? The create view is what we talked about earlier, where you have all website capabilities. This gives you the ability to kind of hyper focus what you're looking at, right? So we'll just say test view. We go down through here, right? You show users ID reports. And this is just basically where you can associate different reports or different conversions back to this particular view. And it'll make more sense whenever we go in here. But as you see here, you've got a view and you've got all website data, and you can just use the filters and associate the filters and goals that we've talked about back to certain views so that you're having a little bit more hyper-focused rifled view of a particular action, items, creative, product, whatever you're trying to really do on. Right. So the main point of this is to get the offline conversions and the cost back attributed back to their platforms. Right. So what we're going to do here is go under the property, go down to data import, create. Now I'm going to bring up, I downloaded just some Facebook data, right? And I wanted to show you what the fields are. We've got like the amount spent, start date, right? If we go all the way to the left here, you're going to see the campaign name. It's got the delivery, the frequency. It's got cost, results, start and end date, CPC, link click, CTR, all that fun stuff. So it's got that's the data that you're going to pull down from a normal, dashboard sheet. Or if you're uploading them offline, like your cost data on those. Or let's look at this refund data, right? If we do refund data and we're trying to look at refunds that are offline, right? You have to have the transaction ID in there, right? Either the product SKU, so it can back it out of the inventory, or product price, quantity, refund, right? This has to be in there because it has to be able to back it out of inventory if you're doing any sort of inventory tracking through this stuff. Product price, quantity, refund, revenue. These are all additional stuff, but this has to be in here, right? The transaction ID, so your Google Click ID, or the transaction ID that you have associated with the particular item. And it'll track back to your goal that you have in here, right? But let's go back to the just the cost data, because that's what I'm more interested in right now. I'm trying to figure out what my ROI is based off of what I'm spending and what it's showing within analytics, right? So what I need to do is I need to get that complete picture. Right? I'm going to see in analytics what, how many conversions I'm getting, what their expected revenue is based off of my goals that I've set and based off of my parameters that I've set in the code. So this is, more about getting the cost data back in so I can actually determine this is what it cost me, this is what my return was, this is what my ROI was, right? Or this is what my revenue was, this is what my ROI was. So now that we're going to hit cost data down here in the bottom, go ahead and hit import. We're going to do Facebook cost data, the name. And you'll see here, I can bring this up in my all website view, or I can only load it where it'll show up in the test view, right? So I'm going to do it on all website data because I'm not trying to get hyper focused right now. I just want to get a visual picture on this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the all data, and then it tells me these columns must be provided. So we already looked at the data that was in there, right? We've got a date, we've got that it was Facebook, the source as well as we've got the campaign in there for the medium, we've got the source was Facebook. And then these are available down here as well, right? You've got cost, clicks, impressions. So unfortunately, the cost and clicks, like when you put it in here, the column ID doesn't associate to ad clicks, it's link clicks, right? So that's where some of those things you'll probably have to remap it. But for this particular note, we're just looking at cost. That's all we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just put cost in there. Now, when the import behavior, right, you can do a summation, which if there's additional data in there that kind of matches it, then it's going to aggregate it all together. Or you can do overwrite, right? If there are multiple data rows with the same keys, overwrite all data with the newest data, okay? I'm going to do a summation because this is just an upload. Like typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload like every 7 days, right? So I want the summation of all of the data together for this particular case. Now, if you're pulling your sheet from the beginning, then do the overwrite, right? If you're just going to update it, that kind of thing. It really depends on how big of a data set you have, how much, you're spending in these other platforms to really put it in there, right? If it's something where you're talking about thousands of lines of, data information, it gets a lot. It can take a long time to upload and even download to get it off the system sometimes, right? And there may be too many columns depending on where you're at. Like there's a bunch of different variables, and I'm going to leave it up to you to kind of decide what is going to be the best value in that, right? So the next point, what we do is we just go ahead and hit save. and hit done. Go back to data. And we see my Facebook cost data. So I put it in there already, but this is the new data set that I put in there. So then you can go back, you can manage your uploads, right? Upload a file, choose a file. Upload, and you can re-upload it, right? And if you want to do so it failed because it's already uploaded, right? So the main thing that you're going to have in here is the cost data. So again, it's going to check some balance, and because we have that summation, it's already uploading it, so it's not going to overwrite the data, is the settings on that particular thing. So if you try and upload the same data in there, it's just going to error out. So keep that in mind whenever you are doing these setups, right? Because you have to stick with it, and we're going to talk about that in the next lesson as well. Is like if there's a point, like you have to be consistent within these systems, right? You have to use the same reports. You have to do the same like structured data setup, because ultimately if you're changing any variables as you're going through there, right, you're uploading more data or more date ranges than the previous date range, or you're trying to overwrite date ranges, and any of these settings are counteracting, then you're just going to get failures. You're going to cost yourself more time, and it's also not going to report back in the system in the appropriate manner, right? So now this is going to take anywhere from about 8 to 10 hours to upload and kind of validate in the system. And then you'll be able to review it within your acquisition tabs and kind of compare what you're spending in these channels versus the other channels. Now, the other aspect of it is uploading conversions into Google Ads, right? Now, this is how you can do, primarily, this is for offline conversions that are attributed to Google Ads, okay? You can't really, it's a little bit more difficult to upload Facebook conversions here because a lot of the data doesn't align, right? Facebook conversions, they have to be something where you can attribute to like a CRM or a CSV file or something to that effect, right? So if we're on here, and how we're going to find this is we're going to be in conversions, right? Click on conversions, you're in your conversion tab, you go down to the upload menu, and you're here. Okay, now you can choose different types of uploads, right? You've got a Google Sheet, HTTPS, or you can pull it from the server system, whichever one. We're going to do a Google Sheet, or you can at least link an existing Google Sheet. And we'll do, let's do this. All right. So now the other cool thing is up here, before you upload conversion using spreadsheets, right? You can look at Google Sheets. Like, what does this look like? What do I need to, as a particular, for me, I'm always doing, I'm uploading call conversions, right? So this is what my sheet looks like a lot of time. And it's going to give you a template for you to structure. Now, before you upload it up in there, you've got to remove all this stuff, right? These are just explanations on what to put down here and how to insert it. Like if you want to do a time zone, you insert your time zone in here. Now, you don't have to put that in there, but that's kind of, what you're trying to match up. So if you're ever trying to attribute any offline conversions back to the click, then it has to be in there with a time zone. You're just going to put your time zone that you have in the account, right? You're not trying to put their time zone or anything along those lines. The time zone insert parameter is whatever you have in the count. For me, it would be, LA. And that's, you just basically fill this out with what your caller's number was, your call start time, conversion name, conversion time, conversion value, and conversion currency. Upload that back into here. All you do is just through that and hit apply. All right, and it'll upload it back into the system and integrate and basically show the conversions back into the click ID, because what you're uploading is you're pulling these down from like analytics, you're pulling these down from your CRM system. and kind of aligning them. And that's going to be able to go back through either tracking back to the date or tracking back through the Google Click ID. You're going to be able to align those conversions, your offline conversions primarily. These are for like brick and mortar stores, or for me, it's like call conversions, right? I get some call conversions we do some desktop ads with so some of the conversions that we get on our website, they're not always attributed. So we'll basically pull those back into the system to give us a better picture of our overall ROI. So that's really how you're going to be able to solve some of these issues that you have maybe heard about, or that you're just honestly going to experience as an agency owner, or even as a business owner where you're expanding, because the ultimate goal of this entire, course is to help you understand how to utilize, Google Ads as a full funnel solution, but also how to utilize it as a solution to aid your other outlets, right? If you can tie all of these things in, and we talk about this in one of the bonus materials, is the omni-channel marketing effect is a incredibly useful and must have in today's marketplace, right? You have customers that are appearing on laptops, desktops, smart TVs, on cell phones. They're being exposed to brands and ads across multiple different devices. And if you're not on those devices, then whenever they're looking for you, right, then you're going to lose that sale. Your competitor's going to be able to take advantage of so utilizing Google, utilizing all these other platforms in more of a omni-channel effort to make sure that you're really moving that customer down the funnel, increasing value, increasing that research and loyalty and brand availability in every point of their life, is what all of these systems and where we're moving to within, multi-channel marketing. And the better you can understand how to utilize analytics to review all of where everything's coming and how long people are interacting with your site at these certain points and what's valuable, the faster you're going to be able to get ahead of trends and make sure that you're continuing to make sure your costs are staying low, your conversions are going through the roof, and you're putting a lot more money back in your pocket. Now, next lessons, we're going to jump more into this attribution, where we can actually see exactly how, the money is finding its way into our pocket. We can see how many touch points they're making and doing in order to find our products, and we can utilize that data in order to make sure that we're creating those really effective, relevant multi-channel experiences to always improve our consumer experience and making sure we're paying the lowest cost and always putting that money back in our pocket. So we'll see you in the next lesson.